He's never fought us. Not us united.
Die. Oh! I can so see that. That's it. What's up, guys? Welcome to Under Two Capes, the show where I defend my title as the Comics Lord. I'm Jared, and today I bring about a newbie to the whole world of superhero comics. My mother, who she's been on the show before. If you've seen my episode reviewing Joker, which that was awesome in a vaguely disturbing movie, but that's just the Joker. But so today, a little context. So she has no exposure to any of the stuff, right?
Very little exposure. I can't say no exposure, but very little.
Well,
no conscious exposure.
You are my mother, so I have to pass on that knowledge to you.
Okay.
So she saw The Flash and enjoyed it, and the idea was, she came to me and she said, Jared, I want to learn more about this stuff. Can you explain a lot of this Flash stuff? And then, being the natural genius of content that I am, I decided, let's make an episode of this. So we're going to be explaining the basic plot behind the Flash movie. We'll talk about a little bit of Man of Steel, since that was heavily involved in it. And we're going to be reviewing a lot of the book Flashpoint. And we'll be teaching her how to read a comic book. So it'll be a very fun episode.
Yes, because I asked him to teach me. I said, give me a little bit of material here so I can kind of familiarize myself with this. And then I'm looking at this comic book and it's all over the place, the squares and boxes. And I'm like, do I go down like this? Do I go this way? I mean, I'm sure I could have figured it out if I sat there long enough, but I thought, let me go to the experts.
Yes, of course. It's nice being called an expert. I like that. So do you want to do the overall story first, or do you want me to do the teaching first?
Do whatever you feel you want to do first.
Okay, so first I'm going to do this. I'm going to actually share. So those of you listening on audio, go to the YouTube channel. So this is the comic that the movie's based on, Flashpoint, the 2011 event that served to reboot DC. And this is basically what the movie was based on. You'll see like some story inspirations behind some of the creative choices they made in the movie. So we'll start off.
Wait a second. Is that book on there?
Yeah.
Oh, can I use the book?
I have this, but
I don't know how these things work, but I can look this way. I'm an old fuddy-duddy.
So the idea is, when you read a comic book, hang on, it's gonna get to the actual book. So that's what's called a splash
Let me ask
page.
you the first thing I would ask. Like, what is the first thing? I'm looking at these two people in the front. That's the first thing that catches my attention.
That's what you're supposed to look at. Yeah, and we're looking at this image right here.
Okay, and then I look around. I'm looking around now, and then where do your eyes?
It's meant to because it's the title page. It's meant to draw your attention to the title, Flashpoint.
Okay, I see
and
that.
And these are all the people involved in it. So you have the writer, the penciler just puts in like the rough sketch of what the thing looks like, and then the inkers embellish it, and then the colorist put the color in there. And then the letterer puts in all the word balloons and all the transitional state, basically all the words.
Okay, so wait, inker and colorist. So the inker goes kind of over the penciler and
puts in all the shadows, and then the colorist goes over that and puts in all the color.
Okay, I see that now.
So it's more of a collaborative process when it comes to comic books.
Okay, and my only familiarity with comics was probably a long time ago with the Archie comics, and very like minimal. So
yeah, it's the same idea.
This is way more intriguing and just so much more. Just in general.
Yes. So we're talking about the Andy Kubert cover for Flash, which I have on the screen right now.
Beautiful.
And so what that's supposed to show is it establishes the idea of the story. Flash runs, you have the lightning bolt, and you have the Flashpoint versions of some of the DC characters in here, like Aquaman, Cyborg, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
Okay, these are all his friends.
These are all his friends that were kind of altered in Flashpoint.
Let me tell you the first thing that came to my mind. So in case there's any like comic book writers and drawers on here. The first thing I saw when I looked at this was I did see the Flash running at me and all this stuff coming around it. But I didn't notice. I was looking at the people behind him and thinking, is he running from them? That came in my mind.
That too.
But they're his friends. Why would he run from?
Well, because at the end of the story, he has to undo this world. So he's kind of running away from the dark world that he's there.
Okay, great. That was well done, this drawing.
So next up, and then by the way, here's what the pencils actually look like for the cover, by the way. So you have an idea about, if you want to turn back in the book, how it changes.
Wow.
So the story opens up. This is basically...
Okay. Oh, there's the pencil.
The narrator is introducing you to the basic idea of Barry Allen.
All right, this one doesn't look so difficult to read. You start at the top, obviously, you go down.
The way it normally works, if it's this straightforward, is that you read down with the panels and then left to right.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Like regular.
I don't know why it starts to bother me. Like, not bother me, but make it
difficult. It can get overwhelming. In Japanese comic books, which are called manga, you read backwards, which is so hard. I tried it.
Doing that.
It messed with my mind.
I'll start with this.
Yes, thank you. I'm not a manga guy. There were other people for that. So,
but I'm the only one who can get this lemon started again anyway. And then is that Alan Nora?
Nora Allen's.
Nora Allen. Nora. I see Alan.
That's where the government works. They do things backwards.
Love it. Okay.
And it's showing him working late in his lab with the chemicals behind him. He's struck by lightning, and the chemicals splash on him.
By the way, I should preface or just add into this thing that I am a voracious reader, so it's not like I don't read. It's just that this genre really is not difficult, but challenging at the beginning, because I want to take in so much.
It's a lot coming at you.
And it's okay. It's so beautifully done. It's like a movie and a book at the same time. Love it.
So turn the page.
Okay.
And then we have that's what's called the splash page, where you have one panel on the page telling this massive image.
Oh, I love it.
That's basically it. And then you also have splash pages that take up 2 pages, like that first photo in the beginning. That was that big battle with Flashpoint.
Yes, this right here.
That's a double page splash.
Okay, so these are called splashes. These aren't splashes, even though they're very splashy.
Yeah, and then and you see the Flash running. You see him getting married. You see his Flash family. There are other flashes.
This is good. This is easy so far. I don't know why I thought it was difficult when I'm having a hard time.
Those are all his friends, which are the Justice League.
Gorgeous.
There are a few members you've probably seen before. Some of them probably not.
That's the Lantern.
That's Green Lantern. That's other Green Lantern. Because it's at this point in the universe, there were 3 Green Lanterns.
I see.
From Earth. There's Hal Jordan, who's the main guy, who's played by Ryan Reynolds.
Right.
There's John Stewart, who was one of the first African American DC superheroes.
Where's that?
Is he on that image? I don't see him, but he's a former United States Marine. That's Kyle Rayner, because there was a storyline called Emerald Twilight where he turned evil and basically killed the entire Green Lantern Corps, and he was the last one for a significant amount of time.
Love it. Who's this person at the top?
That's Starfire. She comes from she's a princess from another planet.
Love this.
And that's Aquaman's wife, Mira.
Yes.
That's the Atom. He shrinks. That's Martian Manhunter. He shapeshifts.
Love it. Who's this guy at the corner again?
That's Shazam. Or as he was known back then, Captain Marvel. He used to be known as Captain Marvel. It's just what happens that DC let the copyright lapse. Then Marvel grabbed it. And that's why you have Brie Larson's character being called Captain Marvel.
Oh. I caught a little sound effect.
Yes, that was intentional. So the way the storyline opens up is it just throws you in.
This is where it gets a little difficult for me, but I'm gonna.
By the way, I'll explain. And by the way, context, I showed her the animated movie for Flashpoint, so she has some exposure to this story so far. But
fun. But let me tell you, my instincts are.
Yeah.
Start at the top.
Start at the top. Yes, you read
the left to right. Here's where it gets the bottom
left to right,
left-hand
still corner. Left to it's like who the hell are the rogues? Director Singh. There's this, and then you go.
Oh wait, do I go down here?
Yes, because these two are
connected.
Speech bubbles are connected.
Oh, that's helpful. Okay, and then this one, I get it now.
It's not as difficult as it looks.
Will they ever do that? Will they do it where they're separate like this, and there's 2 boxes with separate bubbles?
Occasionally.
Okay.
If there's someone speaking. Now, these are speech bubbles. These ones over here are like little narration points, I call them.
Okay, this is great. I think I have it. I think I finally caught this thing.
And then you have Barry running, but he realizes he doesn't have his powers.
Terrible. I remember this
because he went back in time, because he saved the basis of Flashpoint is that he goes back in time and saves his mom from dying.
Right.
But what that does is it changes everything after that as well, because he was put in the circumstances to become the Flash because his mother died. If he changed the past and she didn't die, he wouldn't have his powers.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then
I love how they did this going down the steps.
Yes. A lot of artists try to. Not a lot of artists do that. Ironically,
beautifully
it's only like
done.
really Andy Kubert and Jim Lee do that a lot.
Very,
He did that in
very
Batman Slash.
effective. We're not going to go through the whole book, are we? Because
No, we're not. We're going to go
this audience to see me have to go through this.
So basically, the idea I'm going to flip through it real quick on the computer. The idea is that we see Barry's mom, and then she basically is the first indication that something is wrong in this universe.
Okay, finally, a mother that I don't think was named Martha.
Yes,
that is my name. By the way,
did
you introduce me as Martha? Because that's my name.
Yes, but another Martha. And by the way, so since we're gonna be briefly talking about Zack Snyder, I kind of have to play this.
Why did you say that name?
Oh,
that was from Batman versus Superman, the Martha scene where they realized their mothers have the same first name.
Yes, and here's another Martha here.
Her name is Nora.
Okay.
And then so she what's kind of funny is that she goes, he goes, okay, so Superman doesn't exist. What about Batman? She goes, well, of course we've heard of Batman.
And then let me just double check this now because it gets a little complicated again. We start at the top.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to move. We're going to come down, and we
Left
have
to right,
I'm the Flash, and something's wrong. Someone must have. And then it goes left to right.
It goes up, down.
Right. I can read that part.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Up and then down. So we start at who's, then we end up at what's the Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
We go to the right to what's the Justice League.
And then you go down to here. Yeah. It's basically a lot of interpreting the flow of conversation.
Right.
And then we meet Batman.
And that's
another double page splash of Batman in Gotham.
Stunning.
Yeah.
That is amazing. The beauty of this picture.
Yeah. Okay. And by the way, people watching at home, we're looking at this image right here by Andy Kubert.
Okay, I think I get it now. But who is this fantastic artist?
That was Andy Kubert.
Wow.
He and his family actually started a school for comic book professionals called the Kubert School.
That is phenomenal. I mean, so worthy of being
Yeah.
Sold, bought, and consumed in all ways. Beautiful.
And what's actually a fun fact? So you see how Batman's eyes glow?
Yes.
Until Zack Snyder, they hadn't had the glowing eyes on the Batsuit. It was just like just eye holes.
Oh.
It's just when he uses the anti-Superman armor, which you'll see in the movie eventually, he has like glowing white eyes.
I love them. I think that man is a genius. What's his name again?
Zack Snyder.
Well, phenomenal. Everything he's done.
As you can see, she is my mother.
Okay. I only started to get, it was the Batman, which is not Zack Snyder. I realized that. Mm-hmm. The darkness of that made sense finally to me.
Well, because it's Batman. It also makes sense that it'd be dark.
Well, I always thought of Batman as, don't forget, I was, brought up in the 70s.
Her Batman is the 1966, and lad, that's for
right.
You finally have someone else that likes that show.
Which I love that show. I think it's fantastic, and I still would watch it. It's kind of cute, but it was more like Little House on the Prairie Batman.
Yeah, this one's more like the.
It makes me think of Batman like, wow, this guy is like he's capable.
Well, because it wasn't until like the Dark Knight Returns comic book and then the Michael Keaton Batman movie that they started to see, let's make Batman this dark character. I think that works a lot better.
I loved all the other guys too. I just wasn't really cognizant of what was going on. I was more likely going to the movies with you and the family, and then planning my suppers and dinners and lunches and everything we were doing.
Being a mom.
Mom stuff in my brain. I was just there for the family, but just recently, somehow there's been a little bit of real estate freed up in my brain. So I think when I know what it was, the Batman, you took me to the Batman that had the orchestra.
Yeah, I've explained. So for context, I took her and my dad to see. So what they basically had, they played the entire The Batman movie by Matt Reeves.
Phenomenal.
And then all the music was a live orchestra.
That kind of like made me see this thing in like not only just 3D, but I kind of was appreciating more the value. I was thinking, take a second look at these things. Just because I watch Pride and Prejudice and other kinds of movies like that. This really is actually not only not boring, but it has so much richness to it. I think it has so much cultural value. The music was phenomenal. That really brought it. And now when I watch the movies, I'm actually listening more to
appreciating it more.
And as a musician, I'm surprised it took me this long to figure it out. I think I just had to bring it to my mind's eye, just how intricate this music was and how well appointed each little piece was, every little piece of music.
So and now what I'm doing is I'm going through the actual book and showing you scenes that they recreated in the movie so you can better visualize this.
Just can't go that fast because my brain doesn't work as fast as yours.
No, because I'm trying to find the actual scene.
Oh, okay,
so
good.
This is Barry having the realization that something
That's
changed.
Interesting. That's it. Wait, the brain behind, the head behind there is...
That's Barry. Wait. and he's basically having the realization that
Love
something has changed, because at the same time, the longer he exists in this new timeline, his memories start to realign to this new timeline.
Right. But what I'm loving about the drawing, and
Mhm.
so I see the bubbles coming down top, starting from the top, going all
It's
the way
really easy to
down.
read, and you notice it's divided by lightning
Oh,
right down there, so it has the flash
Plus,
motif.
what I love about it is this going on in his? This is his mind.
His own mind.
In other words, all the thoughts in his mind.
In other words, remember in the animated movie where he started having a seizure?
Oh yes,
That's what that was. His memories were kind of realigning to the
Love
new
it.
continuity.
I love it.
And then essentially, so you have the flash ring, which has his uniform, but when he ejects the uniform, it's of his enemy, the Reverse Flash.
That must have been quite a shock.
Yeah, and the reason why the Reverse Flash did that is because he wanted Barry to know, hey, by the way, I'm here, dude.
Oh,
It was just sort of an intimidation tactic.
there's a lot of cruelty in these things.
Oh, yeah. Well,
There's a lot of cruelty.
and this is the scene where Steve Trevor is killed by Wonder Woman, because in this universe, Wonder Woman never became good.
Okay.
Because he never crashed.
That was so
landed on her
surprising
island.
to me, because I think I remember watching a movie with you way back where they were in love. The things that I did catch in all the other movies when I was planning dinners were all the
Romance parts.
not just the romance, but yes, but all the special moments with the mothers,
Mhm.
the fathers, who was getting killed, who was crying.
Mhm.
But I was more in, not just in tune with that. I was drawn to that, and unfortunately my brain would go into moments in my own life where I could relate to that, and so I missed a lot of the movie. And
Oh,
now
of
I'm
course you did.
seeing.
And then so here's the first thing that they actually pretty much scene for scene recreated is they're trying to give Barry his powers back, so they're trying to recreate the accident that gave him his powers.
I like the cartoon better than the show. I did love the movie, by the way, the new movie with the
Mhm,
Flash.
mhm.
But I loved the cartoon because it really showed the wreckage of his body.
Yeah, because speaking of that, that's what
That really.
that is like, oh.
I mean, look at that. I mean, so
Third-degree burns
all
over
the
his entire
viscera is literally flamed and just exposed.
Yeah, and then you have like
Yeah.
you see right there.
This is
and
kind of interesting to me because I once was at a burn unit, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure they could make him a mummy like that. But
it's DC.
it doesn't look like that at all. But so I had to get used to that concept.
And Batman does not exactly have access to a emergency room, even though Thomas Wayne was a doctor.
And he's so
So, yeah.
wealthy, he probably had all the equipment he needed.
Yeah, kind of, because in this Wayne Industries is not like a company; it's a casino. It's a chain of casinos.
And I'm just wondering, here's where my mind is going, and this is a new direction. Now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, he's rich, he has all the accoutrement he needs, but where's his staff?Maybe his staff is in the background that I don't see.
In this, he does kind of have an Alfred. It's just that they don't show him in the book. His Alfred is the Penguin.
I'm not like grabbing the idea that a doctor is going to sit there and bandage this guy up. I'm thinking he's going to give it to his peons, and that would have been nice to see. He had a small little group of people.
What you have to understand is that this Batman doesn't trust anyone anymore because of what happened to his son.
So he's wrapping the mummy himself. For
Yeah,
the people. Okay.
Plus he is
Possible.
a doctor, so it's like he finds
right.
and we see more of
And
the
he's
memories
Batman.
change. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and because he's Batman, and you see more of the memories changing. That's why Barry's screaming in pain.
Oh,
And
see.
then- and then
First
he-
thing I think,
he-
he's screaming in pain. Okay.
And then here's another indicator of how much of a hero Barry is. After getting burned and everything, he's like, we have to try again. He's like, do it again, knowing that the next time could actually kill him.
Oh, I love that.
So they
Such a
recreated.
hero.
This time it works. And then I love this. They show this in the animated movie.
That's another thing. May I interrupt for a
Yeah,
moment?
go ahead.
That is another huge thing that make me really love these movies now. I mean, I never really put it together. I don't think I had time to put these things together. But now that I'm putting things together, when you think back of the campy Batman, which was for its time,
It was for its time. It was
fine,
great.
and
That
for
was
what
fine.
it was doing,
It was fine.
okay. What I love about this, though, is that we're really getting into the nitty gritty. I mean, we're seeing what the pain was like.
Mhm.
Everything. What do they say? Bop, bash.
Yeah, because here's the thing. In that Batman, you don't really get the idea of how much trauma that whole incident gave
That's
him.
it. And I think in the world that we live in today, honestly, for people to really relate,
Mhm.
we're talking about these things. So we really need to see them to understand, to relate. We can't relate to people that are sis boom ba. That's not going to work. The bandages, the viscera showing, that the people tears.
That's why when
It's
people say,
important.
that's why when I've heard people say comic books are for kids, I'm like, have you read comic books? You just had a burn unit, dude.
I'm going to be honest with you. If you were younger, like a little boy, I'm not sure I would have been like, you should wait a little longer.
Yeah,
Although
wait a
your
little.
father would have been like, oh, bring him.
Well, because I was 10 years old when Dad goes, play Halo.
Hey, it's great. It's
Play
great.
Halo.
Either way, it worked.
So this is where, so basically what Barry decides is that, okay, so we have to undo this, but we're going to need Superman.
Yes.
So he goes, okay, so he starts Googling, because remember in the movie when he was on the computers trying to find where Superman landed, it turns out in this universe, Clark's ship came in, but instead of landing in Kansas, it landed in the middle of Metropolis, and the Force caused a nuclear explosion.
And he's good here. Superman's a good man here.
He's still
He's
good.
always good, but in other words, he's perceived as good here.
They would have a sequel book to this, like years and years and years later, called Flashpoint Beyond, where they establish why he was sent to Earth, but he still rebels against that because the Kryptonians were going to invade and take over Earth, but Superman actually turned against that because even after being tortured by humanity in this timeline, he goes, "No, these people are worth saving."
Oh, see, I can't help
it.
That is so sweet.
It shows that for the most part.
Aww.
Superman will always see humanity as his home team. Because remember, he was sent here as a baby, as far as he knew, up until his power started developing. He was a regular human being.
Right. I mean, he's torn between two lovers.
That's why Batman actually told me, he goes, Clark, of all the Justice Leaguers, there's a reason why I've always felt the most comfortable working with you. And that's because no matter what, you see yourself as just a regular human that happens to have powers. You don't see yourself as an alien. You will always stand for us.
That's a good point, because he was raised on this. Well, let me think about that. That cyborg guy, he was also raised on this Earth. Is he the same way Superman? Is he like Superman that way?
Sort of, yes.
Down to earth.
Oh, he's
humble.
So for Victor Stone, for Cyborg, you have to understand about him is that he had everything going for him. He was going to get a football scholarship and everything, and then the accident happened, and they've sort of changed what happened with the accident. With this, it was more like it was a car accident in the Snyder Cut, and then it took all that away. And his father, out of guilt, because the father was kind of being a scientist as the priority, not football. In fact, the last thing the father
what I remember about that movie.
Snyder Cut was so good.
No, that's
in the
literally
comic,
the one part I most remember.
In the comic, before Victor's accident, the father said something he probably shouldn't have. He said, "These people will make playing football obsolete," to his son, because he was studying the superhuman people. So that kind of hurt his son. And then the accident happened.
I can completely relate to that. It's like this poor guy's being belittled by his own father. He needs to be buttressed, not belittled.
And then eventually, the whole Snyder Cut thing, the reason why Cyborg is the heart of that movie is because it's really him starting to what's the word? Come to terms with who he is and realizing, no, I can still be a hero like this.
Right, but I'm gonna have to be a little defensive for the father, though. The father is in his own world. He's a scientist. Yep. I mean, my first thought was, how could he say that to his son? But I get it. He's a person too, with flaws and his own, his vulnerabilities. Who knows what he was going? I'm not even going to psychologicalize this guy.
There's this great line down here.
That's a word.
They're rappelling down an elevator shaft, and Batman's like, and then Barry's like, "You all right?" And Batman goes, "I'm just old."
Oh, how old was he in this movie?
Because he was like 60 or so, or something like that. Because remember,
this is the old
Thomas Wayne. It's still old. It's old Thomas Wayne.
Hey, he's doing pretty well.
So as they're moving through the facility, what you actually see if you're paying attention is that what's kind of cool is they put little Easter eggs in here, like this dog skeleton that was Krypto, the super dog.
Oh, look at him!
Clark's dog from Krypton.
That's so sad.
So then they open it up, and then
wait a minute. His dog from Krypton?
Yeah.
He remembered that dog? Did the dog come with him in the shell? And
the dog showed up later.
But how would he have known that dog? He was a baby when he came.
Because by the time he was like a kid, another rocket ship crashed.
Oh, and then it's probably the dog. And then Martha and John. Is it John?
Jonathan.
So Jonathan and Martha took the dog in too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so cute. So he was raised with his kryptonite dog? Or
Krypton dog.
Krypton dog.
And then
I get it.
He kept him at the Fortress of Solitude, which was Superman's little home base. It was kind of like the ship in Man of Steel that his father's AI was in. That was kind of supposed to be a representation of the Fortress of Solitude.
And so, when did he discover that Fortress of Solitude? As a boy, when the father.
Because what happened is that they've changed this a lot of the times, but what happened is that in the ship were special crystals, special like memory crystals that basically said, "Put me in water." So he threw it into the Arctic, and then it created this big, magnificent fortress that had like
Wow.
the AI of his father and his mother, so he
That
could
is so
still
much
talk to his
fun.
parents. And he had like he had a trophy
Oh.
room. He only brings the people he's closest to in there.
I love
Which
it.
would be like I think Batman and Wonder Woman both have keys to the
Did
fortress.
Lois Lane go in?
Yes. Yeah. So here's Superman being very gaunt, and it's red light because remember, like I said before, red solar radiation takes away the powers.
That makes sense because the sun has all those light waves in them, and so this is the one that's just on its own does its damage.
Fact, Lex Luthor has a gun that fires red solar radiation.
Who was that guy that played Lex Luthor last night?
Jesse Eisenberg.
Phenomenal.
Okay, so what you have to a lot of people some portion. Remember, I said the Superman purists are very rabid. They didn't like that because they didn't like how like Lex was not the stoic like
I get it.
megalomaniac. But what Terrio was going for, Chris Terrio, who wrote the movie, he was going for because what Lex Luthor would be like if you were today, he'd be like a Silicon Valley young like tech billionaire.
Yeah, well, that's what probably why I could relate to not relate to him, but he was relatable. It was a nice, a nice vision of what I would not want to be anywhere near.
Yeah, you would not want to be an
like if I saw a stoic guy, I would just think, oh, he's just another businessman. I can deal with that. You deal with them your whole life. But when you see this kind of like a loose cannon, you don't know where he's going, and he's this new thing that I'm not familiar with because it's these young people are coming up in that field. I don't understand that world of what is that world again? That
tech.
Yeah,
Silicon
that's
Valley.
still like that's the young. So yeah, that's scary to me.
And then you have essentially the Justice League of this Earth. They're going out to the final battle because their whole idea is that let's go stop Wonder Woman and Aquaman from fighting because remember they're at war. And then and then Barry actually knows exactly what to tell Thomas Wayne. He said if Bruce were here, he would come and help us.
Adorable. Let's go back to that Lex guy just one more time, just for 1 minute. I was just thinking about something that I never thought about. This is interesting to me, at least. What I love about this guy being from the Silicon Valley is not only is he so unfamiliar to me, but how could the new generation of Batman
relate to him? Yeah.
I mean, if you saw that other guy come in, the stoic businessman, he's so like he's a stranger.
Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor plots were I want to flood the United States to create more real estate. Really?
Right. What he reminds me of is that when that funny guy last night with who's this guy?
Oh, Dr. Evil.
Yeah, when Dr. $1 million billion. See, when that guy walks in, the businessman Lex Luthor, I'm thinking he's not scary to me because he doesn't have the capacity with today's technology.
Yeah, exactly.
And when Lex walks in, to me, as an older woman, I'm thinking, what the damage he could possibly do with these machinery.
Yeah. That's essentially a Flashpoint. You also had the part where Barry brings him the little note from his father, brings Bruce the note, and then he goes, "You one hell of a messenger."
Oh, I love
Barry.
That note.
Yeah, I don't think we ever see like what was in that specific note, but it was enough to give Bruce like some closure on his parents.
It's beautiful. What is that picture? I'm just curious.
That's Bizarro Superman.
Oh, okay.
So nice. What do you think of Flashpoint?
The movie or what you just told me?
Both.
Okay, I thought the movie was well done, personally. You told me, and people have been telling me that this movie's bombing. Okay, I don't have the information that you guys have. These characters are going to be sent into oblivion, to Siberia. Who cares? To me, I went to the movie with my blank slate.
As you normally do.
Exactly. No, normally I'm going with my list of food I'm going to be buying, what meals I'm going to be preparing. I went in there and I thought it was appropriately dark. It could have been darker. I'm going to be honest with you. Knowing what I know about Zack Snyder.
It wasn't a Zack Snyder movie, though.
No, exactly. But now that I know Zack Snyder did 300, he did that other one I don't want to say, Watchmen, yeah. What I've seen him do with Batman and Superman, I mean, really, he could have.
And the Flash, because he did direct the Zack Snyder's Justice League.
But the one that I saw in the movie theater?
Yeah.
I wish it were him.
Yeah. The movie did one thing better than the actual comic book.
Okay.
And so the way it works in the movie, if you remember, is that the father leaves the house because he has to go get a can of tomatoes for the pasta.
Yes, I love that part.
So the way Barry saves her is he puts the can in the thing. But when Barry undoes it, he has to actually take an active role of taking the can out of the thing. So
Yes.
it's a more active
In
role
the movie.
in killing his mother, essentially, because he knows what's
Oh.
going to happen.
That was my favorite scene that I almost can't wait for this movie to be streaming so I could just see that scene over and over again. The mother and son.
Mm-hmm.
That is so
When he says
painful.
goodbye to his mom.
Yeah, I think a lot of mothers who see this are probably gonna be
Even
like,
in the
oh.
book, even in the book, he actually tells his mom the entire story, and she says, "Yeah, you have to let me go."
Yeah. And what I loved is that I love at the end that he put the tomato can at the top. The father had to look up.
Mm-hmm.
It was
And
precious.
finally
That
gets
was very precious.
Yeah, that was
Do
great.
you think that that other guy, the great one, what's his name again?
The great one,
The one that I love.
Henry Cavill.
No, the director that I love.
Zack
Sorry.
Snyder.
That's it, Zack Snyder. I have to have a list of people here so I can go back to these names. Zack Snyder, do you think he would have done it that way with the kid tomato?
Well, what Zach said is that if he were to do, because his original plan was to end on Flashpoint to reboot the universe for the next guy to come in and make a universe.
That was Zack Snyder. But what would Zack have done at the very end of that movie?
Well, he would have done straight the comic.
No. Well, what the comic one? And what did the comic do?
Is when Barry is running back in time to stop himself from saving his mom, he basically tackles himself in the Speed Force.
Oh, I love that one. But then what happens to the father? We never know what happened to the father.
Because at this point, the father's dead. Because in the comics, the father dies in prison before he's exonerated.
I think that would be a good ending, too.
No, that'd be a good ending.
Because, okay, that's another thing. Let's just talk about this for a second. Yeah. In the movie, can I say the spoiler here? Some people haven't seen that.
It's a week. The general rule is that we wait a week.
All right. So at the end, they're walking out, Barry and
Iris.
Yeah. My thought was, of course, because I like to wrap things up neatly with a nice little tight bow, that the father would come out with them. Then of course, I'm realizing he's not going to walk out of prison. They have to do the paperwork, whatever it is. But that was a little too neat and tidy. The father gets exonerated. The mother did die, but the father gets exonerated. I feel like it should be a dark ending.
Well, okay, so the original plan with Snyder's movies is that in Justice League Part 2, his Justice League Part 2, he was going to do the plot of the Barry exonerates his father.
Right.
But then the Justice League is attacked and systematically taken down because in that, Darkseid, the big antagonist, kills Lois Lane and mind controls Superman and turns him into his enforcer and takes over the world.
Hey, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's what
I love the alternate universes, by the way. That is fun.
That's DC's competitive advantage over Marvel.
I think it's very creative because it can get very boring and stale to have the same storyline. But when you're going into a movie and DC's doing it, no matter how well done or not well done it is, at least you're going to go into a story that you might not be familiar with as a person that doesn't read comic books.
Well, yeah, and DC actually has a storyline called Injustice. In that one, the Joker is tired of losing the Batman, so he decides to go screw with Superman. So what he does is he kidnaps Lois Lane. And by Lois is pregnant at this point. That's very important to the storyline.
Okay.
He steals a nuclear bomb. He puts the nuclear bomb in the middle of Metropolis, ties the detonator to Lois's heartbeat. Then he basically gets Superman's attention. So Superman flies into the Joker's submarine, and then he's exposed to kryptonite gas and the Scarecrow's fear toxin, which makes you hallucinate your worst fear. He sees Lois as Doomsday and flies her into space. And then not only did she and the unborn baby die, the nuke goes off.
That's so sad.
And at that point, Superman becomes a world dictator because he's like, wait a second, Bruce. You let this guy escape from prison so many different times, and look at how many people are dead. And at that point, and what Superman does, he flies to the Joker and punches a hole in his chest.
Wow.
He's like, nope, I'm dead. The thing about that storyline is that they take it to the two extremes. Like Superman goes, if you commit a crime, everyone dies. Or with Batman, no one dies.
Well, see, that's a problem for me because... And that's Zack Snyder?
No. It was in the comics.
Okay. Look, they could do anything they want. They're successful. I'm just, a peon over here. What I'm thinking to myself is, that's not real life. Can they make it a little closer? All right. We are in an alternate universe. I will accept that. But that might be the campy part. Do we have to be that far apart? Can it be something a little more relatable where not so black and white? Well, we did that with the Joker. The Joker, I don't know.
Joker was Todd Phillips. Yeah, that was a little bit more of you do kind of feel for the Joker.
which is amazing. It's almost
Even though
like,
he's not Joker yet,
Yeah.
he's not the crime boss
right.
yet.
You almost can feel, you have this empathy for what he became and how he became it. You're not going to say, okay, I'm going to give you a break and say it's okay what you did, but you can kind of see the arc that is more relatable and more realistic.
Yeah, and by the way, the Joker did not
Oh.
have a compulsory laugh condition that was added on to the movie.
Right. But I'm going to be honest with you. I
Mhm.
mean, I could be completely wrong. There could be some black and white issues in life that I'm not just aware of. So,
But the thing about it, the thing about Injustice, it turns a very nuanced issue into very black and white because Superman's wrong because no, there are some times where you shouldn't kill them for doing practically anything, and then Batman's wrong because there are some people like the Joker who just nuked an entire city. Yeah, he
Yeah.
gets killed.
okay, but here's what I'm thinking to myself. I feel like it's a little bit of a cheat when these people do the big far black and white, because I'll tell you why. I do see an intolerance in our society today, not to get political, but I do see that black and white, like he's bad, he's good,
That's the
all
thing.
good, all
That's the way
bad.
it is.
That group is bad. This group is all good, and this other group, when people will say, "Well, I see your point, Martha." 'Cause
Well-
when I bring things out, I'll say, "I see your point, Martha," but then they go back to the all
That's
right
why-
or left. It's like, so maybe that's the thing about this that doesn't appeal to me.
That's why I like Zack Snyder's movies because he very much has the superheroes. For one thing, he has them make mistakes and he has them
I like that.
be a little more morally
Ambiguous
they're still good people, but they're not like, in other words,
machines.
in other words, he allows for nuance in the things. Like, this isn't a black and white issue when you have gods flying around the world.
Right. I mean, okay, if you're going to deal with mythology, like in, the ancient myths,
In Wonder Woman,
that's pretty. Are there some ambiguous characters in the ancient?
well, Zeus, very, very morally ambiguous because he impregnated like everyone.
Well, how is that ambiguous? Would you consider that good or
it's
bad?
because a lot of what the gods did is because they thought it was for our own good.
Okay, but what do people look at them and say? Zeus was all good or all
Back
bad?
then, they saw him as like
just all powerful.
all powerful, and like even in the Wonder Woman comics, they sort of vacillate on because Zeus was all good, but he also had some really bad stuff he did.
Right. I have a feeling now that I'm talking to you about this stuff that another reason why I probably was so like all over the place with these films is that a lot is going on, like the comic book. There's a lot of sound and color, and that is hard for me to take in all at once. I don't have ADHD that I know of, but that could be something I'm shielding myself from. But I want to get the story, and then I'm also making all these massive connections, like because of all the reading in my life and just being an older person. You've been reading more books because you're just there. You've been existing longer. So I might be making too many connections, and I'm not just letting myself just be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I could just go in there after I've had like a good meditative session, like 15, 20 minutes of just
pre-Zack Snyder meditation.
No, seriously.
Zack Snyder.
I don't know if I would do that, but I can tell you, I have a feeling that if I were just really mellow, I didn't have a lot of coffee or tea or anything like that, and went in there realizing that a lot is going to come at me, and nicely so, because that's what this genre is.
Yeah, because here's the thing, and what's kind of interesting is that what a lot of people didn't give Zack Snyder the benefit of the doubt, a lot of comic book fans, that they didn't realize that he gave you the perfect doubt because he created like these complicated plots of movies, but you can still approach them like those to turn your brain off and like watch a movie. If you have like a long day, you can just relax with one of these movies.
Love that.
And
that's a definite great thing about these movies.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is just because a lot of people said that, well, a lot of people, a vocal minority on the internet said that Zack Snyder didn't understand Superman because it made him all dark and grim. And I'm like, well, he didn't. But two, if you're paying attention, no, it's a love letter to Superman because as you will see later on in Batman versus Superman,
right,
the media is dragging his name through the mud because of that incident in Africa that you saw in the beginning of the movie.
Right.
And then it cuts the way Zack does it. The editing is it cuts in scenes of Superman still helping people.
Okay, but you just told me that people are perturbed by the fact that he's portrayed as very dark. But I'm thinking, okay, you're going to a DC movie. There are alternative ways of seeing these people.
Yeah.
Plus, maybe that's the way Zack Snyder sees Superman.
Plus,
and maybe there are other people just like Zack Snyder who would relate to a darker Superman, a darker Batman.
Plus the fact you have to look at how the comics were back then when these movies were coming out. They were very dark.
The comic books, like that.
The tone of the comics at the time, because these people are stuck in the Silver Age when Superman was pulling a solar system on a chain.
That's right. So that's another good point.
And also, what you have to understand is that this other YouTuber comic store, and he said it right. You have to treat the movies as different versions from the comics. You can't expect them to 100% align with the comics. They can't. As long as they get like the basic idea of Superman will save us no matter what, that's fine.
Okay, so when did these characters come about? When did they get more popular? Wasn't it after World War II? Or during World War II?
It was really more in the 60s that they really got popular, because from World War II to the 60s, they started to decline in popularity because they started to be associated with World War II.
Okay.
It wasn't until they gave these characters more sciencey origins, like Hal Jordan became a test pilot, Barry Allen became the Flash.
Right? Did people did they gawk at that? Like, did they get upset about that too? The change from
with comic book people, you're always going to get people.
That so we have to realize we are many years past World War II, many years past this, and I would expect people to change a little. Like, I've changed since I'm 20. And isn't it fair to say that, can we make these people interesting, just like what DC is doing, alternate universes, maybe giving more nuance to characters?
Oh, yeah.
Let us see more of these characters, and let us see characters that are kind of relatable to why would I give you a character from my childhood? I'm not sure it would be interesting to you.
Well, it's like, and I've been on other shows where I've defended Snyder's movies, and I go, okay, so here's what you have to understand. The general audience, up until Henry Cavill was cast as Superman, saw Superman as a joke because he's a character. Well, they still, that didn't mean Superman was not iconic because everyone knew what the symbol meant. But for the most part, when you looked at Superman, you saw a dude that was like saving cats from a tree and wore his underwear on the outside of his pants.
Yeah.
Where what Zack Snyder did, he broke Superman down to his basic components. And Zack has said this.
Love that.
His idea was, I'm going to get to the very core of who this character is so that you can understand it. Then I'll start building him back up.
Yeah, and then I'm thinking about it. I think I'm kind of close to in age to Zack Snyder. And I'm thinking to myself, that's really very amazing that this guy, who is from my generation, he's so young in thought and in mind that he can relate to you guys, the younger people. And you know what I'm saying? And not stay in the little house in the prairie version of Superman.
It was kind of funny. As someone that reads the comics, I've said this. Zack Snyder is Zack Snyder's movies are some of the most close to comics like movies I have ever seen.
Right.
Like, he doesn't deviate that much. He only deviates in the areas because a lot of the stuff isn't going to translate well to film.
Right.
So he's like, I'll modify that slightly. But the rest of it is practically word for word.
Okay. So now since we're talking so much about Superman, I think we're doing Flash, but I do want to make I have another point to bring out. I want to ask you about, I'm thinking, okay, what would he have done for Flash that, I'm not sure if he did this to Superman. What did that little S, or the big S, I should say. Okay, was that always like that?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I
would love to find out the origin, because you said it has like writing, Kryptonite.
The Kryptonian writing that had the camel coat, that was Zack.
So, that's interesting to me. And I'm thinking, I would have loved, but the thing is, he was ancient. He was from a different era. Flash comes from something new, right?
60s-ish, so yeah.
So you wouldn't have Krypton.
And Flash is not an alien, but
he might have done some things just like he did if it's him, because you're saying you're not 100% sure that Zack, because also it's not an S for Superman. It's a symbol of hope. When did that come about?
Well, because the S was always the symbol of his house on Krypton, the House of El, of his family. It's always been that.
In the comics?
In the comics, yeah.
I never knew that. I always thought S was for Superman.
I'm sure that's the way it was back in the day, like in the 30s. But at a certain point, I think in the 80s, they established, no, that's just the logo of his family. That's the coat of arms. Yeah.
Well, see, they were already taking Superman, if that's the case. They were already taking the simple S.
More towards Zack Snyder Superman.
Exactly. So I feel like it's not like Zack just like threw this thing into the future. You had other people taking up the mantle and saying, let's make this guy a little more relatable, or because people are starting to think probably after the World War II, probably especially, they saw a lot. Bombs were dropped. They're not this farmland mentality too.
Because adding on to that,
Yeah.
what you have to understand is that previous to that, with the Nolan Batman movies, this links. So you had the Michael Keaton Batman movies, which completely revitalized Batman after the Adam West thing. Then you had Batman Returns, which kind of scared people. That's one where we had like Danny DeVito as the Penguin. So what Warner Brothers wanted to do is, first they wanted to make Batman back to being more cartoony, and they wanted to be able to sell toys.
Ugh.
So
you can still sell toys.
Well, you can still, but
kids are still going to buy them.
This is where you get like George Clooney as Batman in that movie.
It's so funny. They wanted to sell toys to little kids, but all the people in the comics world that I've ever seen on your show have a collection of not dolls, but I'll say figures. Why couldn't they think that way? Think of all the adults that were going to buy these great items.
I don't think it was as prevalent back then that like people, because remember back then all this stuff was associated with kids.
Yeah, but
it was
I mean,
more associated with kids back then.
These people are in sales. Didn't they think of this?
Well, yeah, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because again, Batman was back to being seen as campy because that Batman and Robin movie with George Clooney.
I really have to
That's
see
when
all
we
these.
have
We have to do this.
credit card.
Yeah, I would love to do the whole change of all the different ones that I can.
I kid you not, Batman whips out a Bat Visa card. Yeah. So anyway,
I'm sorry.
Then you have Nolan's Batman
maybe
movies.
some people might like that, so I don't want to say.
No, that movie
doesn't appeal to me.
Universally reviled. But
it's kind of funny though.
But so,
although if you're really a good Batman fan, let me ask you a question: wouldn't you love to have a Batman Visa card?
Well, yeah, but I don't want Batman to have it.
No, but you guys should have it.
We'll have
that option. Look really cool.
But the thing is that then you have Nolan coming in. It's like, let's go back to Batman actually being cool.
I love Christopher Nolan stuff too.
His stuff was like unbelievable.
Yeah, because I noticed last night we were watching some movie.
Man of Steel and then BVS. Because
I mean, they're all involved in these darker
and
versions.
Then after that, he had a lot of pull at Warner Brothers. So when they wanted to reboot Superman, he said that my close friend Zack Snyder, he has a real eye for this, and trust me, he will do for Superman what I did for Batman.
That's great.
Because the original plan was not to make the Justice League; it was to make a Superman trilogy. And he builds up Superman. He gets him to that like hopeful Superman, essentially like that, and then he has a big finish. But Warner Brothers at the time was trying to catch up to Marvel with the Avengers movies. They're like, no, you have to build the Justice League now.
Yeah.
In other words, a lot of what Zack gets criticized for is stuff that was forced upon him by Warner Brothers.
I know. What's interesting is that they're making these darker Supermans and Batmans, and I don't know how we got into the subject. I'm so sorry.
No, but
this was the Flash.
It applies to this, and it was actually kind of interesting. Speaking of the Flash, the way that Zack put Zack had Barry Allen in that movie is that is like he kind of had heavy implications that Barry's actually on the spectrum.
Oh, interesting.
Because and they add on to this even in the Flash a bit, because it's like when you have the line with Barry going, "I need friends."
I kind of like that idea. I never thought about that. You know, not to go all woke on you, but I'm just saying that is interesting to bring in other nuances of like, well, are there any ones with special? Well, they all have special needs. This guy with the big thing over his eye, Cyborg. But what I was thinking a second ago was that, okay, Batman saw his parents get murdered right in front of him. I'm hoping that's in all the universes.
That's in all that's the whole thing.
Okay, and then Superman's raised at a farm by loving parents.
And then he discovers
he does discover it, but later on in life. So one has this wholesome upbringing on a farm. One, I don't know where he went. I have to get through those stories again, the Batman stories. Like, you know, one comes from a darker, earthier,
a darker origin,
right? And yet, people are going to. They have to think. I really have to think more about this. Like, where am I going with this? I know my mind is really moving. It's another little topic here.
All of them is a lot of them start from a point of mental trauma.
Right. I do like that one. That would be a great discussion.
I mean, even Wonder Woman, because to a certain degree, because remember,
yes,
her mother had told her, "Oh no, the way you were made is that I formed you out of clay, and my love brought you to life." And then it turns out, no, actually, she's the daughter of Zeus.
Yes,
she's a demigod.
Yeah. Well, no, not really. I learned a lot today.
But yeah, so that's this could be an.
I feel like there's too much going on. My brain is like,
this could be another show on Comics League. If you guys think it's popular, where I explain stuff to noobs, particularly my mom, because she doesn't know a lot about this
stuff. If there's
stuff.
anything you think that I should be watching right now, I would love to know, because my mind now is on the idea of all the Supermans.
Yeah,
from the beginning of
Zack Snyder
time.
movies.
Because I really, and on the Batman one, I want to see all the Bruce Waynes.
Yeah, we'll watch those.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Thank you, HBO Max. Like, comment, subscribe, drop a comment below on like your favorite Flash story, what you think of Zack Snyder's universe. Please be civil, because otherwise I will break out the band hammer. And stay heroic, everyone, and I'll see you in the next.